Now, there is more bad news for Julia Gillard in the latest news poll out this morning. Primary support for Labor has slipped to a 7-month low of 31% in the poll in The Australian.
And Tony Abbott has overtaken Ms Gillard as a preferred Prime Minister. He leads 40 to 36. 7 News political reporter Alex Hart joins us now from Parliament House. Alex, news poll is the one all the politicians take the most notice of, isn't it? And Mr Abbott leads Ms Gillard as preferred Prime Minister for the first time in 7 months. What do you reckon? Is this another nail in the coffin?
Yeah, certainly another nail, but not necessarily the final one yet, Koshi. Julia Gillard has proved pretty resilient over the past couple of years, and we know that she's not going to give up the leadership without a fight. But what could be the final nail in the coffin is the next news poll due out in a fortnight, when all of the Labor MPs are back here in Canberra for the next full sitting week of Parliament. At the moment, only the senators are here, and there needs to be all of the Labor caucus in town if there is to be a leadership spill. Now, if that news poll in a fortnight does show that Ms Gillard's position is entrenched as being less popular as Tony Abbott, or if she in fact falls further behind him, then it could be on, so to speak. Many wavering Labor MPs may decide that that would be the best time to switch allegiance to Mr Rudd, believing that the party's position under Julia Gillard is basically unrecoverable. But the reality is that today's news poll really just backs up what we saw in the Nielsen poll last week, confirming that the party's position hasn't necessarily got worse, but really is in a dire position for both the party and the Prime Minister. Guys.
Well, and look, a fortnight is a long time in politics, we all know that, but this news poll found that bringing Kevin Rudd back would only provide a small increase in support for Labor. Do you think that's a setback for Kevin Rudd and his supporters?
Well, it may be something that Julia Gillard's supporters point to say, well, there's no point in switching. But I think any increase in support for Labor, however small, will be used by Mr Rudd's supporters as evidence of the reason why they should switch back to him. And there have been other polls in the past couple of weeks that have showed that he is still significantly more popular than Ms Gillard as the Labor leader, and one last week that showed that the party could still win the election if he was put back in. So I do think that Mr Rudd's supporters will continue to push for him to be returned, despite the fact that he's publicly declared that he's not going to take the job, even if it's offered to him.
Alex, we get bombarded with percentages in these in these types of things, in these polls. Put it in perspective. On a two-party preferred basis, according to news poll today, if that was the outcome of an election, what would it mean?
Well, the reality is Labor would lose anywhere between sort of 16 to 25 seats across the country, lose by that much, you know. So we're talking about a significant wipeout in parts of Western Sydney, particularly. Depending what happens up in Queensland with some of the state issues, may not be as bad there. But we're talking about potentially putting Labor into opposition for up to a decade. So it could be a substantial result that basically, like I say, leaves Labor floundering for some time to come and creates a certain big period of introspection. OK,
and that does put it in perspective. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Alex. That is incredible.